Alrighty, so the new Borderlands 2 DLC has been out for a while, and there have already been a great number of OP10 level 80 builds for all of the characters posted up on YouTube, and one of the more recent ones that I saw the other day was titled The Best OP10 Axton Build. Of course, if you've been playing Axton for a while, or anywhere near as long as I have, which is longer than most people that have been playing Borderlands 2 in general, you will know that Axton doesn't have any singular best build, and yet the best way to play Axton is to actually make use of multiple builds depending on the content you're doing, either be OP10 mobbing, Digistruct peak, or certain raids, because there are raids out there that Axton can of course do, and some raids require different builds to each other. So the particular build that I saw that kind of like annoyed me quite a bit was themed around just general OP10 mobbing play, so around 95% of the content that Borderlands 2 can give you, and of course I didn't like the build. So this is my version of a OP10 Axton build, and it has been brought up all the way from level 50 to each and every single level cap increase. It is now in its 4.0 stage, and if you know me for a while, you will of course know what I mean when I say this is the T.I.N.H.A.T build, which stands for the insert name here Axton thread. This was originally a Gearbox thread that I had made, which has since been lost to time, and it has taken many different aspects of, well, 3 different builds at the time that I incorporated into one, being heavy slag application, great survivability, and shield regen and low shield delay, and then of course good DPS output with Axton skill buffs. So first things first, when it comes to making an Axton build, it's not all about the skill tree, it's actually about the weapons that you use, and in OP10 now that means more than it ever has done. So we have the brand new peak opener that comes from the new raid, T.I.N.H.A.T the Invincible. If you get one of these are exceptionally great on any character, but Axton can also make it shine with increased magazine size and fire rate, and that is going to be our mainstay of the build. That's going to be our main killer. In the second spot, that would be your secondary DPS. So if you need something that isn't projectile and is more hit scan, or something that maybe has a higher built-in natural fire rate, or some kind of gimmick, then you can go for that. I suggest either of the butchers. You can be either corrosive, fire, or shock. It all depends on the content that you are doing. I always recommend taking in elemental sets of weapons, especially for OP10. So you can either use the butchers. If you are so inclined, you can use an Unkempt Herald of the double penetrating flavor. Of course, that's a good old tried and tested that has survived the times. You do have your practicable conference call. The only reason why I reintroduced this into my T.I.N.H.A.T build is because of T.I.N.H.A.T the Invincible, because of the synergy it plays with the B on T.I.N.H.A.T, with his main crit spot actually being behind his back or on top of his head, which is not so easily accessible as some people may enjoy it to be. The other weapons that I use are the slow hands. These offer great damage output, great elemental application, and of course they give you healing for the damage that you do while you have them in your hand. So these have good synergy, especially with some of Axton's other skills. As it stands at the time, I do like having a slow hand in my secondary slot, or a kitten. It depends on what I'm kind of feeling when I wake up on that particular day, but of course you do have your elemental set of kittens. We already have an assault rifle that's heavily dependent on ammunition, because the peak opener does consume 4 ammo per slot. So I'm actually going to put in a shotgun, so we do have some general ammo play, because this isn't a very ammo efficient weapon. The peak opener will eat the ammo up quite a bit. For the third slot, I like generally dedicating to the heaviest form of healing in the game, being the grog nozzle. Now, a lot of people still have their gripes with the grog nozzle. They think it's an exploit or a glitch or a cheat. The grog nozzle is a legitimate item that was dropped in game, and people can obtain it, and I understand that because it's got a very high healing percentage, some people don't like it. Axton needs more healing built on him than his skills can initially give him, because unlike some other characters, namely Salvador as well, when you use your action skill, it doesn't heal you instantly. And not only that, but your action skill itself doesn't provide any healing to you on Axton, and the damage that your turrets do don't get converted into healing by using the Moxie weapon. So I put the grog nozzle on there, and of course it does have the added bonus of having a 50% chance to slag your enemies. And Axton, like I said, one concept of this build was heavy slag application, and Axton also makes great use out of being able to swap to a slag weapon and swap back with one of his skill trees, giving him weapon swap speed. So this is great synergy on multiple levels, of course. And then your fourth, everybody's favorite RPG, is going to be the North Fleet. The North Fleet, of course, while it does hold its own in much of the content that's out there, isn't going to be the primary weapon of choice for this build. This is if oh shit, I'm down and I need to really get up really quickly, and there's not trash mobs, there's like hairier, beefier mobs, and maybe they're behind walls or something, or behind cover. Whip out a North Fleet, fire a couple of shots, and you're up on your feet again. And of course the North Fleet is good for just firing and forgetting. Say if something's behind you, fire the North Fleet down and turn around, whip your peak opener out and start shooting the stuff in front of you, of course, so you're killing from behind and killing from the front. Shields. The secondary concept of this build was also shield regen and low shield delay. Now I got this originally from a build that centered around using the cracked sash. Now the cracked sash is a unique TDR shield which has extremely low shield recharge delay on it, and the reason why I'm actually not using a cracked sash is because you can somewhat emulate that with other shields with Axton skill trees. So we have the antagonist, which has a built-in recharge delay of 1.43, and this is a great shield. Of course it deflects enemy bullets, sending them flying towards nearby enemies. That's not the main reason why I put the antagonist in your selection. The main reason why I say this is actually because the deflection chance itself, being at 50%, is 50% of the time you're just not going to take damage from a bullet, which is pretty great. But if you do take damage, then you're going to suffer. Look at that damage reduction at the bottom of the card, 49%, so the damage reduction definitely plays good with Axton as well. And then the launching the slag homing balls at the attackers also plays into the mass slag application of this build. The secondary shield and the mainstay, what I originally built this for when I was around level 50, was the Sham. The Sham, of course, 94% absorb chance. This has its synergy with the North Fleet, so you can Sham Fleet if you are so inclined. But the main reason for this is because on my findings on PC, the Sham performs better on PC than it does on console, simply because you can have a higher frame rate. Now this may be, you know, pun intended, tin foil on head, tin hat kind of stuff like that, but I honestly believe the higher your frame rate, the actual more performance you can get out of these shields like the Sham. Whereas I was testing it on console way back in the day on the 360, it felt like it barely actually worked in comparison to the PC. But the main shield for this build is the Sham, of course, with the absorb chance, and then its low recharge delay. This is crazy. Next up, you're going to have your class mod, and for this mobbing build, this is only the mobbing build that I put out. This is T.I.N.H.A.T 4.0. The raid builds will be 4.1 and 4.2 respectively, and Digistruct Peak is its own build, of course, with slight variations. This main build will be using the Legendary Soldier class mod, and there's one reason for that. Another point of synergy is having your buffs up and your turrets up as much as you can, with also buffing yourself with your damage and your fire rate. So the Legendary Soldier class mod gives you insane cooldown reduction on your class skill, and also buffs your gun damage across the board just by having it on, and your fire rate. And of course fire rate is just another version of increased DPS, and you also get a +5 to your primary skills in each tree, which is excellent because there are a couple of skills individually which we will be making great use out of. Now your grenades. The tried and tested Stormfront, in my opinion, has now been replaced by the electric chair, which is coming from the new DLC. This is essentially the exact same grenade as the Stormfront, only it shoots out little lightning bolts as well, so it's somewhat more useful, and I like using that more than the Stormfront now. I like that little effect, I feel like it's more useful, of course. Secondary grenades you can also use, of course, are going to be the explosive fastball, and this is just, I mean, look at the damage on that thing at OP10. The explosive fastball, of course, if something's slagged, you just throw one of that at it and it gets deleted from the game. It's pretty crazy how powerful that thing is. And then of course your third grenade, stuff like maybe if you want to do Terramorphous or Pyro Pete and you need some slag application, hey, look at that, you're going to want a Bouncing Bonnie with slag as its element, of course. The best thing to do when it comes to a Bouncing Bonnie is also get the lowest fuse time that you can get, which is 0.9, and get Sticky Longbow, of course. But don't do what I do and get an OP10 version. The reason why you want an under-leveled Bouncing Bonnie is because if you have to then move into the area where that grenade is active, if it's an under-leveled version, it's not going to kill you. If I walk into this OP10 Bouncing Bonnie, it's going to kill me instantly. So get a really low-level Bouncing Bonnie with slag, and then you'll be good to go. Relics, there are only really 3 of choice and 3 that I would even so dare to entertain when it comes to this build, and that is an elemental set of Bone of the Ancients. Of course, this gives you extra elemental damage based on the elements that you're using, and we do have our elemental set because why wouldn't you? And it also gives us increased cooldown rate alongside our class mod, which is just great synergy. And then we also spec into those skills and skill tree, so I am spec'd for fire at the moment, so I'll go ahead and put fire on too. There's one thing that I neglected to mention with the shields. Of course, you do want your sets of bees. So if you're doing something like Terramorphous again or Pyro Pete, you are going to be able to make use out of that extra amp damage. And of course, if you're doing other general bosses like say Hadorax, or you know, maybe Saturn or stuff like that, or just really super enemies that spawn in the field, then you can make use of the bee. Additional weapons that you can use, we've already gone over the Butcher, and you do have a Logan's gun. Do what I said with the Bounce and Bonnie with the Logan's gun, get a really underleveled one. Of course, this is only just for using while you have the sham equipped, aim down at your feet, shoot the Logan's gun, you'll absorb the bullets, and that will regenerate your rockets for your North Fleet. We've already gone over the Unkempt Herald and the conference call, and then we have the birds themselves. We have the Flying Sandhawks. Now these Sandhawks will be used in raid content, or say heavily armored or heavy, you know, HP enemies, say Saturn, or you know, the badass constructors. I can't remember what they go up to, I think it's 3.0 or something like that. But you do have your elemental set of Sandhawks, of course, and that's for, you know, heavy clearing content, Takino's mother in, you know, Digistruct Peak, and that also plays well with the bee. And that's the gear. Now we actually get onto the mainstay part, we get on with the build. Of course you want your main skill. So go ahead and put 1 point in everything apart from healthy. The reason why you don't want to put anything in healthy is because it increases your max health. It sounds crazy, but there is such a thing as health gating in Borderlands 2. And health gating is where if you have above 50% HP and you get shot by something that would deal a greater number of damage than your actual HP value, because you're above halfway, it'll knock you down to a low amount of HP. Whereas if you're at 49% instead, it's just going to knock you on the ground and you're going to die. And that's what health gating is. Health gating stops you from being one shot as long as you have greater than 50% of your HP value. So the higher your health bar actually is, the more healing you have to actually provide yourself to get to that percentage, which is why I don't pick up healthy. Now let's go over to Gorilla. We're going to want to max out ready, or at least put 4 points in there. We'll get to the maxing out when we absolutely need to. Max out willing. Let's go over the skills real quick. Sentry increases the number of shots your saber turret fires in each burst, as well as the duration. The increased number of shots means there's going to be more bullets coming out of your turret, but because of, well, it's not double up, we are going to spec into Gemini, which allows us 2 saber turrets, and then of course double up, which gives us slag turrets as well. So we're going to put a lot of slag out there, and of course once an enemy's slagged, it's slagged, so those extra bullets aren't going to, you know, make the slag stronger. But the more things that are hitting your enemies while you're focusing on another enemy, the more that enemy's base HP regen is being taken care of by stuff that you don't even have to worry about. Because HP regeneration on enemies is pretty relentless in OP10, so having something take care of that for you while you're killing something else is excellent. So put 4 points into ready, that goes up to 9, that gives you extra reload speed. We probably are actually going to max that one out if I remember correctly. But you definitely want to max out Winning. Winning improves your shield recharge rate and your shield recharge delay. That just plays into making the sham a cracked sash, and it's also great for the bee and of course the antagonist. Max out Able. Every time you damage an enemy you will regenerate health, and this is only a measly 2.0% of your maximum health per second. But if you don't have a Moxie weapon out, such as the Grognos or the Slow Hand, this is going to give you some amount of HP regen per second while you're doing other things. And that 2% actually does play into something that needs maybe a little bit of extra HP regen, like the Slow Hand or the Kittens, because of course the Grognos has around 60+% of your damage converted into health, whereas the Grognos or the Slow Hand and the Kittens do not have anywhere near 60%. So, you know, giving them a little bit of extra help isn't the most evil thing at the end of the day. Scorched Earth, this just gives you rockets on each of your turrets, and this is also good for creating miniature splash damage zones when your turrets fire, and helps take care of enemy shields, keep enemy shields from regenerating, and also keep energy HP from regenerating too. Onslaught, this is a DPS increase straight up. When you kill an enemy, your gun damage and movement speed get increased for a short amount of time. Going to want to put 4 into that at least. Extra gun damage is amazing, and of course extra movement speed is amazing. Now for the rest of the gorilla, we do want to actually get to the bottom skill tree. I don't usually put anything in grenadier, and the reason for that is because if you have 3 or fewer grenades, then those ammo boxes that you open when you're out and about will start spawning grenades. So just, you know, open 2 next to each other, they'll both spawn grenades, and then you're back up at 8 grenades or so. But if you feel inclined, you can put something in grenadier. I tend not to actually do that. Crisis management, the reason why I don't spec into that is because it needs your shields being depleted, and the entire purpose of this build is to have your shields actually regenerating at all times. So we need to get down to double up. An extra point into ready, an extra point into onslaught, and then a couple of extra into sentry, and then we get double up. That's gorilla done. Now we're going to skip the middle tree and we're going to go straight into survival. So we have to max out preparation. This just gives us extra shield capacity, and while our shields are full, we also regenerate health. So if our shields are full and we've got nothing to shoot, and well, we're not getting HP regeneration from anything, this can also help as well. Pressure improves our reload speed, which is nice, but mainly our shield recharge delay based on how much health we get. So the lower our HP is out of our maximum pool of HP, if we're about on the verge of death, pressure will make sure that our shields are regenerating quicker than ever before, and this just plays into the great synergy of this T.I.N.H.A.T build. So max that one out. Last ditch effort. You may be so inclined to spec into this, but I don't plan on spending a lot of my time and fight for your life. This just gives you extra gun damage and movement speed while fighting your life. It's like onslaught, but you have to be on your knees begging for it. Quick charge, 4 into that, 1 into phalanx, into madlock. And that's how you build the rest of the survival tree. So quick charge, killing an enemy causes you to regenerate your shields for a short amount of time. With natural shield regeneration in play with quick charge, built into preparation, built into pressure, built into willing, built into the already low recharge or low recharge delay of the sham, that is excellent synergy right there, so definitely spec into that. Phalanx shield. These aren't the healthiest things to give your turret, but the reason why I like specking into Phalanx Shield is because they do a good job of blocking some things such as throwing projectiles, grenades, terramorphous rocks, terramorphous little tentacle beams and stuff like that. And Novas, they can block as well. I can't remember if they block a Pyro Pete Nova, but they are also good for just annoying enemies too. So I always spec into Phalanx Shields, just helps it shields that, the turrets out. Maglock, this basically means that your little turrets, when you throw them, they'll stick to walls and ceilings. This is great for just being an annoying little shit, essentially. So you can have your turret on the floor and then a turret on the ceiling, and if your enemies are looking in 2 different directions trying to kill your turrets instead of looking at you, that's a win for me. Resourceful, this just gives you flat action skill cooldown rate built in with your class mod and your relics. That's great. Grit. If you saw my OP10 Axton Invincible video, that was my first ever kill in my 2nd attempt on that raid boss. Grit procced a lot. Grit just basically means if you're about to take fatal damage, you have a 20% chance of ignoring that fatal damage, and you'll actually get back up to half of your HP, which puts you at health gate. This is great synergy for Axton, and there's a class mod that actually puts extra points into Grit if you feel so inclined to do so. I just like my legendary con more. And then of course Gemini, this just gives you 2 saber turrets, which is excellent. That's more slag, more rockets, and more shields on the field. Final tree is gunpowder. Put a couple of extra points into impact to open up the 2nd skill. Max out metal storm. And then we have Battlefront, which is our on skill buff. Now let's go back a little bit. Impact just gives us extra gun damage and melee damage. We don't care about the melee damage so much. This isn't 0, so we want that for the gun damage. Expertise, this is where our weapon swap speed comes in, so you can swap to the grog, swap back to a killing weapon really quickly with this, and that's excellent. but it also gives us quicker aim down sight speed, which is cool, you know, why wouldn't you want that really? It's not wasting points on it, and it gives us increased movement speed while aiming, so we can position in a fight much quicker. Metal Storm, max it out, killing an enemy drastically increases your fire rate and reduces recoil. Recoil is whatever, but that extra fire rate, 60%, that's pretty significant. Run into Longbow. 4 into Battlefront. Longbow means we can throw our turrets like a longbow grenade, which is really good. It deploys them slightly quicker, but it also gives the turrets extra health. Battlefront, when your saber turret is deployed, you basically get flat buffs to your gun, melee and grenade damage. Again, we're not in this for the melee, but the extra gun damage and grenade damage is extremely nice. Now we do have points left over. We have 8 points left over. I recommend Do or Die. Do or Die allows you to throw grenades while and fight for your life, which is, you know, great. And it also increases your damage dealt with grenades and rocket launchers. If I remember correctly, that damage increase with grenades and rocket launchers is just even when you're up and on your feet. But regardless, say if you're down and you're in fight for your life, throw a grenade, get a kill. If you swap straight to a Moxie weapon, then you're going to have healing the moment you're back on your feet. And you don't have to then throw a grenade and then swap to a Moxie weapon while you're on your feet. It's already set up for you, so you've got a good source of healing, so you can reposition yourself. So we still have extra points left over. Max out Impact. Let's max out Quick Charge. 5 points. Put a couple more into Expertise. Max out Battlefront. 2 points here. Because we're using the peak opener, I would actually suggest putting it in Overload. Now the peak opener will have 59 bullets without anything in it. Now if we go over here, put 2 into there, we now get 70. That's an extra 3 shots, and that is a lot of damage coming out of that peak opener. An extra 3 bullets, an extra 3 shots basically from this rifle. And considering how strong that rifle is, that is quite significant actually. And that is the mobbing tin hat build 4.0 for OP10, and this is of course badass rank off, so in game that is my representative shield and HP values of the build and the gear that I'm using. That in total is the tin hat build for OP10 Axton. There is a video link in the description that uses this build. There may be a very small variation of it where I say I don't have the skill there that gives me extra ammo, so I don't have Overload. Maybe it's an extra 2 points into Expertise. There's a very small variation of this build in the video linked in the description, which is taking this and the peak opener through OP10 Bloodshot Stronghold. This is my final perfect OP10 mobbing build, and I would never suggest anybody use anything different for this setup for OP10. If you're doing Digistruct Peak, maybe you could change a thing here and there. I wouldn't really see what that would be. If you're doing raids such as Hyperius, then you would have a different build that's themed more around damage and reload speed because of the TDR reload. If you're doing something like Hadderax, I use this build for Hadderax nowadays. This is it basically. This isn't the best Axton build because, like I said, you have to make use of multiple Axton builds to clear 100% of the content. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found this one truly informative, and I actually did enjoy making this one. It has been a long time since I've made a build video, and I've had an Axton one planned for years, and now that the level cap has gone up, what better time to do it? And just to show what the HP values are like. There you go. And that's a shield value and the HP value with a modest badass rank. Nowadays, you know, just that is a modest badass rank in comparison to some other people. Shadow Evil. And so yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found this one informative and you enjoyed it. If you did so, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you do feel so inclined, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.